Getting used to it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of our beautiful Casa podcast for those who believe. And today, I'm really excited. I'm very happy in my heart to introduce you to our wonderful daughter of the Casa and sister, Glenice Giles, all the way there in Christchurch in New Zealand. So we have our Casa family from all over the world connecting. You're our first person from New Zealand. And
Mhm.
thank you for agreeing to talk to us. And we're talking about all things Casa. And this podcast is really reconnecting that divine spark that we have inside of us and that we remember from being ignited at the Casa. And of course, many years ago, people came and their lives were changed forever. Mine, certainly, yours also. And we're talking really about how we got to the Casa, because a lot of us don't know these stories. And um, what took us there in the very beginning. And for you, Glenys, as you were saying, we were just talking there before we went there, that you were a late bloomer. So, how did you actually end up at the Casa from New Zealand? And what year was
Well,
it too?
it was, and it's wonderful to be on this podcast. And hello to all my dear friends, my soulmates that I met at the Casa all over the years. Wonderful. Um, it was probably in the year of 2006, and I'd just come back from Europe on a trip. I was nearly 65, and my neighbour over the back fence said to me, there's a gentleman coming to Wellington who is a special healer from South America. And if you give me your photo, I'll take it to Wellington and you'll get healing. And I didn't know anything further, so I immediately thought, I'm not giving my photo to a stranger that to send energies to. I've got to be very careful about this.
Yeah.
So I left it. About 3 weeks later, I had lunch with a dear friend who is a flower essence healer. And she said, Oh, I just have to tell you, I've been to Wellington, and there's this wonderful event in Wellington with the entities of light. And she said it was just wonderful. And I just immediately knew. She said, I'll tell you all about the contacts. And I was right onto it. I connected with it and
Right.
connected with Peter War in Wellington straight away.
Love him.
And a week later, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer.
Wow. Oh my God, I'm all
Yeah.
goosebumps. I didn't
And
realize
um,
that.
and I had within a week I was in hospital having surgery,
My God.
and within about 3 weeks later I was booked to go to the Casa in Adjania, and I went
Amazing.
with Peter and his group. The first
I
time I went, that was
remember.
2006,
Wow.
and we traveled forever. We were on long flights, and we stopped off at Rio, and we stopped at lots of places. Um, and we finally got there, and it was completely different to what I thought it would be.
Dear.
Um, but everything that happened was like I had found the light. I had found my home. I had found this beautiful
Amazing.
thing. We were all going down and sitting in current. And I said to Peter, how can I sit in current and meditate? I thought I had to sit in the lotus position and be all very prim and proper. And I said, I can't do that. And he said, no, no, just sit there and do nothing. Close your eyes and just go nowhere.
Yeah.
So I did. And it was absolutely, it was great. And I sat in currents, and I started being taken down to the waterfall and
Mm.
having crystal light beds. And the waterfall was just the most wonderful experience I'd ever had. How people would come out. This was in 2006, and there were several houses. I think I stayed at um, Los Divina, and
Yeah,
so walking
I'm
down
still
that
there.
main drag towards the Casa, and down to the waterfall road, there were lots of houses, and we'd set off. There might be a group, maybe of about 30 people, setting off from various posadas to go to the waterfall. And the most wondrous thing happened. Dogs came out from every corner of the planet, and there were 4 times as many dogs as there were people. And we
Amazing.
all went. We all went like the Pied Piper, all the way down to the waterfall. And we
Gorgeous.
stood on this plateau at the top, and we all joined in prayer. It was the most wonderful thing I'd ever experienced. And
That's
all
so
the dogs
lovely.
hung, and because I love animals, and then we had the protocol of going down to the waterfall, and it was just absolutely beautiful.
Amazing. Life-changing, really.
Yeah,
You know.
I just thought, oh, it was just like being in heaven.
Yeah.
And during that first visit to the Casa, I think there was a Mardi Gras on in Brazil, and the medium at the time was having difficulty in incorporating.
Yes.
And
Lot of heavy energy.
and we were told that all the people who had sat in current the previous day had to go to the waterfall and pray their hearts out to get cleansed and to help the energies
Of
of
the
the
planet.
area.
Yeah,
Yes,
because it comes with
and
this
because
really
no further
heavy.
healing could be done until that had been done. So that we all walked down to the
That's
waterfall,
amazing.
just saying the Lord's Prayer and Hail Mary repetitively for about 20 minutes. And it was just the most marvelous thing. And then we got news back to say that the whole thing had worked beautifully and all the healing was now taking place. So
Wow,
that
it's the heart. It's the heart
was
energy.
wonderful. Yeah, it was
And
just
then
absolutely the most
praying
beautiful thing.
together as a group
Yes,
makes the whole
yes.
difference. I mean, when I went to the Casa first 22 years ago with my sister, she was in a wheelchair and we went on the first day and there was lots of people in the main hall and it was heaving and people from all over the world. And my sister almost jumped out of the wheelchair when she heard the Our Father and the Hail Mary because she was anti-church, anti-Catholic, um, because she just didn't do religion. And she said, "You brought me to this church." So she was, baiting to get out of the chair. And I said, "No, it's a vibration." I was trying to get my head around it too, because I wasn't a churchgoer at the time. And I was like, this is a bit Catholic, but it is about vibration. And you were right, as a group praying together and staying in the current together in meditation as well as a group, we are all powerful. We are working with the unseen beings, the entities of light, as you aptly named them, from all backgrounds, all creeds, all colors, all belief systems, and especially those without belief are welcome to the Casa. And the entity used to always say that. And I also want to thank Joao de Diaz for bringing us together because we wouldn't be having this wonderful
Mm,
talk about our spiritual home or one of our
mm,
spiritual homes
mm.
if it wasn't for his saying yes to his mission. So this is us coming together 20 years later or more for many of us. And really delving deep into our healing process, which is ongoing. I mean, you came in 2006 with Peter, who's absolutely fabulous. And I learned so much from him alone as well. We all learned from each other. And then you came back because I remember meeting you again. You came back to the Casa after that
Yes,
again.
I left after the first time thinking, oh, how on earth am I going to get back there? Because I came home and then I had to go through a whole lot of radiotherapy.
Yeah.
Um, and then um, and then the entities of light brought the medium and everyone to Wellington. So that was the second trip to Wellington. So I went up to Wellington and I had a beautiful session up there. And then I got a job because I was a retired nurse, and I got a job in a little old folks' home in a small country town just out of Christchurch, doing Reiki healing and massage
Well,
for the people in dementia units and things. And I managed to save up enough in 4 years to actually go back again. And I went back on my own in 2010.
very
And
brave.
that was it. I could only afford 10 days, so I worked it out. So there were two lots of week, two lots of 5 days, and I'd get two lots of the 3 days when the
Current.
casa was actually operating. And that was the most amazing trip because I just met this gang of soulmates. And it was just wonderful, and we all clicked. We had the most marvelous time, um, and and it was just incredible. And I'm pretty sure it was that trip that I got there after all this saving and all this 4 years of waiting, and the medium actually wasn't there. I think I think the medium was in Europe or somewhere like that.
Yes, he used
Yeah,
to go to Europe.
it was an impromptu thing that had happened, and so I thought, no, it's okay. The divine,
Yes.
my divine, has orchestrated this. This is perfect. So we all went down and we sat in current, and then the medium returned for the last 3 days. So I got a whole lot of surgeries, but in between, I think it was 2006 and 2010, I'm so grateful to Peter from Wellington
Yes.
because every time I think he came over to Abjani every 3 months, he would say, I'm going, do you want surrogate surgery? And I said, yes. And so I just had one surrogate surgery when I was at home in that 4 years, one after the other.
Wow. And that helped to heal you. You're here today talking to us. So you had a
Yes,
miracle healing, which is
yes,
beautiful. And you see, the entities know no borders, no boundaries, no time or space. You're in New Zealand. Peter is in Brazil. It's about intention. He's doing an intervention, a surgery for you in Brazil, and you're receiving in New Zealand. So it just goes to show you how fluid and what a small planet we live on. I mean, the universe is big, but there is no border. You are receiving as if you were in the casa. And this really did consolidate your healing. And you're here today just as alive, mad alive, as my mother used to say, and looking gorgeous. And you are a testament to the healing power of the Casa. I think, though, you need a certain amount of belief. I mean, I went there very doubting Thomas and very much resistant and not surrendered. And it took a while for me to realize, oh my God, there's something bigger going on here than I could ever even put my. Still, it's a mystery to me how God moves and works, but I know that we're not alone. And I know the entities don't have passports, and they went to you every time Peter represented you in the intervention room, and you received. And I have been doing surrogate interventions for many years, and the results are extraordinary. And sometimes people do pass on because we are all going to pass on at some stage. And I often got flack or a little bit of needling from people saying, well, if you're God is so great. Why did so and so die, after you
Oh,
had done
yes,
an
yes, yes.
intervention? And I said, I don't know the mysteries of God, but I know that we have a certain amount of time on the planet, and sometimes passing over is the cure. I don't think you can add an extra day to your life unless you paid. I don't know. I really believe that um, when your number's up, your number's up, and be ready, as the Lord says. I mean, I'm not a saint, but I don't, you know, do as much harm as I used to, and I'm more aware now. But then
Yes.
when you came back to the Casa and he wasn't here, I know a lot of people used to be really disappointed, but you sounded like you were very much at ease with that because I know he came back before you left, but how did you find the energy, if you remember, when he wasn't there?
Oh, it was wonderful.
It didn't really
It
matter.
was wonderful. That was such a special trip. I was only there for 10 days. And as I say, I met this group of I think we all must have been together in Dominacio's time or way back in the Middle
Definitely.
Ages. I
Your
just felt
family,
that soul
your soul
connection
family.
very strongly. And there was a girl there from Russia who was I think she was a medium, and she'd
Mm.
been she'd been meditating in her room, and she came to me and she brought me this picture that I've had and kept for all these years,
Oh, yes,
and it's Jose Pentiagos,
it
and
sure is.
she said this message came through to say that he is with you and he is helping you.
Wow, I'm all
And
goosebumps again.
yeah, and I think it was after that time we had a lot of very bad earthquakes in Christchurch at the
That's
time,
right.
and there was a lot of damage, a lot of death. And we also afterwards had a terrible tragedy in some mines on the west coast where this mine all blew up and all the
Mm.
people inside got trapped.
Wow.
Um, anyhow, I was going up to Wellington on the odd occasion to the casa that Peter has up there,
Oh, yeah.
and and they. I got the feeling, strong feeling, that I needed to bring crystals back to the area. I needed to bring crystals back.
Yes.
Um, but I couldn't afford to buy a whole lot of crystals. I bought a few at the shop, but I couldn't afford any more. And then I went up to Wellington and they had literally a sack of crystals that they'd brought back from Brazil. And they said, we've been wondering what to do with these. So here. So that was incredible. And I just went around Christchurch burying these crystals and up over to the coast around where this mine had exploded, and just praying and going with a friend, burying all these wonderful crystals that
This is
had the Christ consciousness energy,
this is
and
beautiful.
to help the land and to help the diva of the land,
Mm.
who had, the people in the mine had ignored the restrictions of how much they should develop the mine. So they'd kind of plundered the land. And so
Yes.
the energy and the
Heavy.
love needed to be brought back to the land. Um, so
It's
that
beautiful.
was just a blessing to be able to do that.
Yes, because this is a very important point you're bringing up. People don't understand the power of crystals. They are so vibrational. They are vibrating on a very high level from a very ancient past. There is no time in the spirit world. So these crystals are from way back, the formation of the earth, and they were brought into the fruition by great pressure and great force. Really, really compressed. very, strong energy. And a friend of mine who I was talking to recently from England was had the idea of bringing crystals from the Casa to Auschwitz about 10 years ago, Gemma. And she brought them with the blessing of the entity and brought them to Birkenhof, actually, because she couldn't find a place
Mm,
in Auschwitz,
mm,
and placed them there beside the gas chambers. And when she returned to the Casa, the entity said that the crystal energy will help with the healing. I mean, this is such a heavy energy. So you were doing the same thing consciously. And when I went to Auschwitz a couple of years ago, I just called, I just woke up and went, well, I'm off to Poland. So I brought rose petals that had been blessed by Saint Rita in the Casa, red roses, and they were dried rose petals. And I spread them in the gas chambers of Birkenhof, and which were not as the one in Auschwitz was actually still standing. I mean, it was excruciating, but put rose petals all over the whole area, and I could really feel the entities. And somebody had got there before me and actually had brought about 100 roses and put one red rose in every um, bunker, every place. There was about 100 roses, fresh red roses. I knew it was Saint Rita, and there were people oohing and eyeing on these tours. There was quite a lot of people, and I know it was the entities and all the places of terrible torture and a man's inhumanity to man. And I was so touched. I knew that it was the Christ consciousness
yeah.
St. Rita had the stigmata on her forehead. I carry her around with me. She's my
Yeah.
protector. Um, but yes, I really get that. You see, Dennis, what you're really um, saying, and I think it's a beautiful thing, you were nudged by the entities to do that. You know, this is the work of God. You know, whoever we perceive God to be, there's many different names for the God consciousness, and it's not about religion. But you went there willingly, knowingly, trustingly, putting those highly vibrational Christ consciousness because they're full of the God energy and the God particle or whatever you want to call it, the Christ energy, which is love, um, in these places of trauma. And this helps. It all helps. It's not in vain. It's amazing. And all it takes is a mustard seed of faith. You know, we don't all have to be going around with halos and wings. And so thank you for doing that and for rising to the call because we are called to do this work by whatever in dreams or helping each other. And for you to do that is actually adding to the high vibration of the planet and not detracting in any way. So that's a great reminder about the work of the Casa. And before we came on as well, I saw you were giving me a little tour of your gorgeous house and you have your triangles there. I have a lovely one behind me here in my I have them all over this house, and this house is totally protected. But you have a crystal bed. Tell us about that because they're all over the world now, and they're really strong
Well,
energy.
yeah, that's another miracle. Absolute a divine miracle because I couldn't afford to buy a crystal bed.
Yeah.
And there was there was one person here in Christchurch that had one for a period of time that was working, and I would go there. But there was a friend. We used to have Casa meditations here in tune with Wellington every month, and one of the people that came along had a terminal illness, a lovely woman,
Mm.
and she bought a crystal bed back for her. And sadly, she passed.
Mhm.
And I was helping with another friend, helping her husband organize her funeral
Mhm.
and helping him with her things. And um, and my other friend said, well, that crystal light bed, I'll have that. And I said, well, you won't be able to have that unless you go to Brazil and you ask the permission of the entities. You have to do all that. She said, no, well, you've been to Brazil, you have it.
Wow.
So I
Just
immediately contacted Peter and said, look, I've got this, been given this crystal light bed, please let's get on the process, let's get this thing rolling. And so he sent off to Brazil for me, and I sent the crystals up to be cleansed, and I set up the room and got all the triangles, and I got permission from the entities. So grateful, and have had the bed now probably for about 4 or 5 years.
brilliant.
And I've had people. I had someone come a couple of weeks ago who'd had surgery on her knee, and and I said, well, come along after your surgery and have a crystal light bed, because it'll help sort all your chakras out and any extra
Sure.
healing that you might need after the trauma of the surgery. And she came along, and she lay there with her eyes closed, and she said she saw these divine hands come and work on her knee.
Wow.
And and
Goodness
I
gracious.
know that that happens under the crystal light bed,
Me too.
but it's quite interesting. I live in a complex of about 9 other units, and somebody had surgery and was very ill, and I offered the crystal light bed to that person, and they they said, "Oh no, no, that's not my thing. That's not my thing." And there's all this, and so I said, "Well, that's all right. It helped me a lot, and
Yes.
I would have felt mean not having offered it to you, so that's all right." But the people that come, and I don't have heaps of people, but maybe 3 a week. I know that they're getting enormous help. And
Absolutely.
another
Unseen.
miracle, another miracle that happened for me um, at the Casa was after I came back in 2006. I absolutely felt I was on a roll, and I was hell bent on absolutely getting my consciousness up and running fast, because I was 65, and I wasn't very good at reading books and that, and I needed teachings, I needed influence, I needed to be with it and with it and with it, because I needed to work it mentally as well. That was
Mhm.
kind of my process. So my cousin was in the Oneness organization here in New Zealand, and
Mm.
so I went along to these oneness meetings, and I had a big group in Christchurch, and wonderful, wonderful miracles of healing happening there. And we used to give and receive what we call oneness blessings. And what it was is that we'd evoke our divine through our hands, and
No.
then we'd place our hands on the chakra on a person's head, and they would receive the blessing. And of course, after I'd had all these surrogate surgeries and all these other surgeries, I was following the rules very carefully, because I'm a real rule follower.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh no, I can't go. I can't go to these teachings and these meetings and these blessings. And it was like my divine had, and the entities had heard me,
Mm.
because out of the blue, I got a phone message from a person who was working with the Casa in Wellington, a phone message from Brazil telling me I was to go to the blessings, and I was to give and receive blessings. And I just said, thank you, divine, thank you. And
Wow.
then I just whizzed on. Mind you, every time after I'd had surrogate surgery, I'd go along to the meetings, and there were a couple of friends there who were nurses, and I'd say, "Oh my goodness, you look shocking. You look like you've had surgery." And I said, "Yep,
They're
yes,
your
I've
best
had it."
friends.
So
They're
that
your
was just
definitely
what I mean. The
best.
divine just hears what you need. And it's just one miracle after another that my life has had. Um,
And you're
one of
still
my,
with us, Glennis. I mean, after all you've been through and your sickness and your whole life has been changed by the Casa completely, as
yes,
we all have. And your testament, you're there, you look great, you're getting on like the rest of us, but you look absolutely fantastic. And you've been receiving so much healing. I mean, I wouldn't be talking to you was it not for the Casa, but I wouldn't be alive. And that's a fact. I was on hell bent on self destruction before I came with my sister to the Casa. So the Casa and my sister saved my life. But look at you, you're still going strong after all these experiences. And having a crystal bed in your home as well is also bringing in the energy and even a triangle. I mean, this house is full of triangles, and I can feel the sense I'm not alone, ever alone.
mm,
And I think that people feel that when they left Abidjania, how can I keep this energy going? People used to get upset thinking, oh, I'm leaving this wonderful energy. But you're not going anywhere. You're just changing, location. The entities are going with you. And they work through us speaking and they work through other people. I mean, some people have said things to me recently here in Ireland, and I'm looking at them going, I know, God, I know that was you. Um, because they're uncanny. There's no coincidences and no accidents. But I have a huge mountain of faith. I mean, I really have been, that was planted by my mother, but it was reignited in the Casa. And I think us talking about our experiences and you, particularly these beautiful, um, different, because everyone's different, ways that you encountered the divine will help a lot of people to reconnect. And that's the idea of us talking about the Casa and going forward now from 2025. I mean, nothing really has changed, only the Casa has upshifted. Definitely, the energy is really, I mean, you talk about the waterfall. I was there a few weeks ago and I have no words for it's just so high, the energy, and up, like it has gone into orbit. Even though there is nobody physically in the chair, it just seems to be a time of us direct connection. We don't need a third party, a medium. And with respect to Gerard de Diaz, he was always there for us. But we seem to be getting downloads quicker, dreams are more intense. And as the planet evolves, I mean, there's a huge shift in the dimensional world. And we are
yes,
upshifting as well. So all of these tools that you have, like you have Jose Penteado, who was a lieutenant in Dom Ignacio's army, the picture
he
you just showed us
was.
there.
Yes,
Yes, and he was also many different things, but he was the one who was the talker. And he talked a lot, and people used to get annoyed because he talked a lot to Brazilians because of the Portuguese. And then when foreigners came along, sometimes he talked a bit, but it was always the lines stopped. So you were standing around in the lines going, oh my God, and you're in the current, and the currents were hours long because he talked non-stop. He was a talker. But he was a lieutenant in Dom Ignacio's army, so he was part of the phalange of Dom Ignacio. And it's written on the walls of the entity's room, in all things to love and to serve for the greater glory of God. And that's the teachings of Dom Ignacio in a nutshell. And that's universal. That's not just because he's a Christian saint. That's all roads lead to God, if you like. That's in
yes,
every religious and non-religious dogma or doctrine. Um, all we need is love and service. And for you to come back to the Casa after you know, miraculous healing on your own, alone. It's amazing how you really did that because a lot of people would never be able to travel on their own, such a huge distance. I mean, it's halfway around the world. And, for you to just plan off, very independent, and knowing that there were surprises waiting for you and gifts beyond the human earthly world. You were given spiritual gifts, which is what really matters. I mean, the gift of health is number one in this world, physically. I mean, we were
Yes,
given, I have been given 100% good health, and that is directly related to the work of the Casa Dominatio. And that was
yes.
me in service. I mean, I was flying down on my bicycle, as you remember, running into the currents, doing the curls, and then flying back up on the bicycle to the cafe. I mean, I was 16 hours a day in
I
service,
know, I
but
remember. I
I
remember that.
wasn't I
Yes,
wasn't doing it to show off or oh, aren't I great and this will get me into heaven quicker. I was doing it because I absolutely loved and I love to this day seeing people heal and seeing people awaken. And also, it's not my job to do that, God does that. But it was such a joy to see the transformation in 10 days. As you say, you're only up for 10 days. People changed from the minute they arrived in the Casa. The people I met on day one for the first time were not the same on the day they were leaving. The shift
yes,
was massive. It was
yes.
uncalculable. You couldn't calculate. It was so real. I mean, it is now. Still, people are coming and they're like, "Oh my God, the energy is, flooring people." I mean, there's people still collapsing, um, and also you can see the change in people and the joy in people because they realize that there is help available. That we're not just floating around in outer space waiting to die. So we have this huge phalanges and groups of entities working with us night and day on different levels, mind, body, and spirit. And for you to be able to come up to Abidjan on your own, congratulations to take that giant step. So many people were stopped because they said, "Oh, I have nobody to go with." So
Oh, it was
congratulations on
it
your
was
bravery.
long, long flights. I couldn't afford to fly direct here and there, and I'd have to wait probably 8 or 9 hours at different airports. And
Mm,
whenever I was at the Casa, I'd say to all my friends, I'd say, I'll be home in 4 days because it would take me just about that long. But one of my absolutely wonderful experiences, one morning, I woke up and I thought, I'm going to walk down early to the waterfall. And
beautiful.
I walked
Mm.
and I just tuned into nature, and it was the most beautiful, beautiful experience. As I walked down that orange clay road, um, it was like every critter I heard and every bird I heard and every insect, it was like living in another land of nature. It
Wow.
was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. And one time when I came back from the Casa, I think that this was after my 2014 visit, I went up to Hanmer Springs, which is up in the mountains here in the South Island, and there was a beautiful brook. And I just stood on this bridge over the brook. There was no one around, and I just connected with the entities in nature, and the brook, the water, spoke to me.
Yeah.
It bubbled and sparkled, and it was like it was speaking to me. It was
Yes.
just beautiful,
That's
absolutely
the
beautiful.
divine spark that was awoken in you. I think that's what happened in Abidjania. We were awoken to everything around us. We were very sensitive. Our energy fields just exploded open. We were opened like flowers, like lotus flowers. And our senses and our awareness were just rising so high because we were connecting with the divine nature, not only within us, but with the divinity of Mother Nature. And as Abidjan
Yes,
is very rural, toucans, array azules, monkeys, flowers like all year round, especially
yes,
this time of the year after the rainy season, like majestic flowers, even the flowers on the side of the road, there's no such thing as weeds. They're like multicolored, beautiful flowers just on the side of the road, growing out of cracks. Mother Nature is really, really looking after us. And you're right, the water is the mother of life. And of course, the book by Emoto, that the book about the
yes,
vibration of water, I have it in the
yes,
cafe.
yes,
I have it here actually, and there's a couple of
yes,
volumes. Uh, Water is alive, and it is a high vibration, and that's why you know you probably the water is talking to you. I mean, I'm with you on
yes,
that. I mean, we're not
yes.
crazy. We're normal human
No,
beings. I
no, we're
mean,
not
I'm not
crazy.
I don't go
Everyone,
around seeing
everyone
things.
around me thought I was crazy, but
Of
but
course,
it was an absolute miracle. It was the most beautiful experience. But
yeah.
I have to tell you of another miracle that happened on one of my trips back from the Casa. I think it was my 2015. That was my last trip, sadly. I'd love to go back because it's my home. Um,
Never
I
say never.
after my breast cancer, I they removed probably 80% of my lymph nodes under my arm because that's what they did then. Um, I got a very severe lymphedema in that arm, so the whole arm became very swollen, and I had to wear like an elastic support from the top of my shoulder down to my wrist, and then I had to wear a glove on my hand to support that whole hand. So everywhere that I flew, all my travels, I would shred on this support and glove and everything. And on my last trip, second to last trip back, I got to San Diego and I went to put the support on my arm because I had a long stop off at the airport. And the thing had disappeared. It had just disappeared out of my bag. And I panicked and I thought, oh no, I've got a 12-hour flight back to Auckland. And then I've got another 2-hour flight. We've got to wait and come down here.
Yeah.
And oh my God. And I thought, no, okay, guys, I'm all yours. And I haven't had, my arm is as good as new, and I've flown everywhere, and I haven't had any swelling at all. And I have never seen a sight of that support to this day.
That is a miracle in itself.
Yeah,
And I mean, you
just
surrendered
wonderful.
because a lot of people would have panicked. As you know, there was a reason for that. They just vaporized things and let
I
you
know.
step
Yeah, I
into
know
the
they did.
unknown.
Yes,
And it's a faith
yes,
issue, and you're like, really? Is this really happening? And yes, it is. And it's about a leap of faith, which, we tentative little steps. We're still children, really, we're learning. And that's a
yes,
beautiful testament to what they do because I'm the same. I need compression socks. And I remember one flight I was on, I just completely forgot them. And then my legs weren't swollen. And then one time I did wear them and my legs blew up like balloons when I came back after the pandemic. Couldn't walk. But they floored me for 2 weeks because I got COVID or whatever, and I was isolated upstairs here. And my sister was calling me Anne Frank in the attic. She was sending me messages saying, "What
yes,
would Anne Frank like for her breakfast? What would
yes,
Anne Frank like?" And then they would leave the food outside the door and run. So I was
yes,
confined to the attic in the house. I was only 2 weeks there, not like poor Anne Frank stuck there for years. But was part of the entity plan to slow me down, to stop me from for whatever reason, to keep me grounded for 2 weeks. And I know there is a divine plan because there's God's plan and there's our plan, and God's plan works and ours
yes,
doesn't. And
Yes.
sometimes when I go against the will of the divine, which is very rare these days because I've learned my lesson, I go, damn, I should have gone down the road of the God consciousness because I wouldn't be in this pickle now. But that's how we learn. And
Yes.
then now I just surrender. I just hand everything over to the divine power, to Saint Rita, Padre Pio, whoever's there, Dom Ignacio. And they're not all saints. I mean, I've done a lot of Vipassana retreats where I had to shut up, the shut up courses, as I call them, for 10 days. Believe it or not, I can talk for 10 days. People used to say, you're going where to do what? And they really were in the Buddhist tradition of non-reaction. You know, you don't react to anything. You just sit and meditate for 14 hours a day on your backside in the lotus position. And they're all over the world. And I nailed it, so many times. The hardest part for me was coming back out to talk because when you're talking a lot, you're not listening. And that's why when you were standing on that bridge, nature talked to you.
Yes.
And then the other day I was out when the weather was like Brazil here last week. I went out swimming in the local lakes, which is such a gift. Thank you for being able to walk and drive a car. And the lakes are beautiful and clean. And the birds are singing just for me. It was a
Oh,
symphony. It was so loud. I was like,
oh, how beautiful.
I can hear because my niece
Yeah.
has a hearing aid. She's special needs and she can't speak 100%. So I have everything and more in my life. And I was just saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm in a constant state of gratitude. And even for the hard lessons, which sometimes wallop you, within them are the gems of growth. So you always turn around and go, whatever this is, God is going to see me through this. And thank you for the lesson because I know everything is in divine order. But 25 years ago, I wouldn't have done that. Like I would have just thrown my arms up in the air and gone off to the pub. So I don't really, I'm just grateful for getting my life back by going to Brazil and
Me
seeing a
too.
whole with new eyes every day, new big eyes. I mean, seeing beyond everything. I don't go around seeing things or auric fields, or sometimes they lift the
No,
veil.
I don't either.
Well, and I mean, it's not necessary for me because I know it's
Mm,
there, but
mm.
occasionally they have lifted the veil, not only here, but in Abidjania, and it's blown me so far off the planet. I mean, just for those few seconds, I'm like, they opened up the whole waterfall road for me one day, and they just lifted the veil, and it was made that song like of Paul Simon, who was at the Casa actually. Diamonds on the soles of her shoes. The entire path was so shining brightly. It was all I was walking on diamonds, crystal diamonds, and I was looking at it, and I looked up the road, and the whole road was just this crystal diamond road I was walking on, and I was alone. And I was rubbing my eyes, and it was still there. And this went on for almost a minute, which is a huge amount of time when your mouth is wide open and you're going, is anybody else seeing this? But there's nobody witness. I'm just witnessing this lifting of the veil, showing me this other dimension. And that was just one of many times that just for those few seconds, you're like, holy moly, this physical world is beautiful in a lot of ways, but the beauty beyond the veil is something that you cannot even imagine
Yes.
describing. I couldn't,
Yes.
not that I can't wait to die or anything like that, but I know it's better. Well, in the Bahamas,
Yeah.
it's better on the other side because people have come back and said the colors are more uh, vibrant and the singing sunflowers. And, I've shared a lot of experiences. People have had afterlife experiences and have come back. I'm afraid I'm ready anytime. I mean, we only have so much time. It's only a drop in the ocean what we're doing here on the planet. And even the fact that we can share these similar experiences because you have had your journey to the Casa and you're living halfway across the world. It's the same thing. It's the same vibration that we're sharing, and it's the same life because the life force within us is all powerful, and we have this ability to recognize that it's transitory and that this body will pass like everything else. And to be in gratitude is a magnet
Yes.
for the miracles that are in our lives. Like uh, I'm receiving such joy to reconnect with you, Glennis. It must be at least, if not more, 10 years
Yes,
since
it
we,
is 10 years.
yeah,
Yes, it is 10 years.
and it's as if time stood still. It's like I just met
Yeah,
you this morning, like I was talking to you last night. So nothing has changed between us because we'll always be soul sisters on the
yes.
path. And I believe that we were all reconnected with the Casa through past lives. Believe that or believe it not. I'm a firm believer because I have no doubt I've been shown proof, but that's another day's work. And it was a reunion in the Casa. We were being brought back together to be reminded of the
Yeah,
divine spark, to ignite it,
yeah. I
and to go out into
totally felt that. Yes.
yeah, and to go out into the world, wherever we were in the world, like you're in New Zealand, I'm in Ireland at the moment, um, and spread that light where it's needed most, which is the challenge, because the world seems so full of people who are in fear, and war, of course, which is on no level is war acceptable, or what's happening on the planet is really, it's frustrating to really not feel like I can pray, but I'm not going to go out and be superwoman and throw myself on a bomb so the kids don't get killed. But I think it's absolutely horrific that humans, man's inhumanity to man, and we never learn, and it's always in the name of God, it's always religious
Yes,
belief
yes.
systems. And I just think that we're just repeating, we have to break the cycle. And we can
We
do that
do.
by starting with our own hearts and in our own, we start with ourselves
Yes.
and we look after ourselves, and self-love, which we were always taught by the nuns was, yeah, you're going to hell in a handbasket. So we've started loving ourselves
It's an
and then,
ongoing journey for
yeah,
me,
but
self-love. That's been one of my, I've over-disciplined myself, and so I have to learn to loosen. But one of the biggest gifts that everything has given me now is the ability to pray. And I can pray for, I've got a friend in Sedona who we both know and love, who's been unwell. And so I went and I wrote a letter to the entities of light. And I said, please help our dear friend,
I
and put
know
my head in the triangle and prayed with all my heart. And within 2 days, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one who prayed.
I prayed too. I lit candles
Yes,
for her. And I
and
know
and
what she's suffering.
and it's just that. And I have people next door whose daughter went missing, and so I don't, I just quietly go and put my head in the triangle and pray, and I can do that now,
Yeah.
and I'm useful like that.
Yeah, and
um
all your prayers are answered in whatever way.
yes,
They,
yes,
there's no unanswered prayers, and they're usually not answered in the way we would expect. So we need to try under expectations. But that is very crucial, what you just said. Uh, Prayer is the key to God's heart. And if anyone told me 25 years ago I'd be in Brazil praying and here praying and lighting candles and burning churches, well, not burning churches, but lighting so many candles and really from my heart wanting everyone's well-being, I would have said, you're mad in the head. Wouldn't be doing that. But it is the best thing I can do is pray. And I know that my prayers are answered. Usually rapido. I mean, one of the
Yeah.
prayers my mother used to say is, "Give me patience, Lord, but hurry up." And I know that in God's time, all prayers are answered. And thank you for bringing that up because that daughter of the Casa is one of the most special people I've ever met in my life. And we have met a lot of people in our lives.
Yeah.
And I know that she's receiving the power of the entities and of the Christ consciousness, and that she deserves to, and she has taught us about all of her, what
Yes.
she went through in her life, and she is our teacher. So it is our solemn duty, with respect in the divinity of our lives, to send her uh, our love from our open hearts and ask the divine to alleviate her suffering because she
Yes.
deserves it. And I know that our prayers have been answered. I think already she has mentioned that she's feeling better and she has a bit of a ways to go. So that reminder, prayer, and I put notes in my triangle here. And I
Yeah.
was down non-stop down at the Casa triangle, any triangle in the world, because of that sacred geometry. The whole universe is made of
Yes.
triangles:
Yes.
faith, hope, and love. And then when you put your arms on the triangle and your feet on the ground, your crown chakra is aligning with the top of the triangle. So you're actually sending everything heavenwards. You're asking the uh, beings above to help us below, as above, so below. So to bring that energy down into this consciousness, which is quite grungy sometimes on Earth, but certainly those invocations go up and the blessings are showered down. And
Yes.
prayer, you nailed it there. I didn't even have to bring it up. I just know that anything that is said, help me is a prayer, thank you is a prayer, silence is a prayer.
Yes. Yes.
And,
Looking looking at a tree outside my lounge sliders is a prayer.
yes,
Beautiful tree that's there for me. It's a blessing.
yeah,
And sometimes if I'm wondering about something, the tree will kind of
be there.
communicate to me. Yeah.
I understand that. And also, it's protecting you. And it's life.
Yes.
It's the life force. It's a tree of life, and
Mm.
um, we are knocking down. I went to the Amazon last year, as you know, and um,
Yes.
it was beautiful. I mean, it's still there, a lot of it, some of it, but it's excruciating to see how people are not as evolved as they could be,
Mm.
and that they're
Mm.
not interested in seeing the forest as a source of life force. And it is the God consciousness, and it's our divine feminine mother nature. And trees are so um, necessary and giving. It's love. It's all about love. And just to see the disrespect for that in the name of material gains is quite, I know it's human, and we are rebirthing a new world. So I have great hope for the planet, and I see all these
Yes.
youngsters coming up now, and they're rock
Yes.
stars. I mean, you get the odd one
Yes.
that's like a rebel, like I used to be, like the language out of them and whatnot. And they are under a lot of threat because we did have it easy. We were out playing in the
Mm.
fields till all
Rebels
out.
rebels have promise.
Love that one. And also, they are under a lot of duress too, and they need our prayers, because a lot of them may not be connected to a divine source, by whatever reason. And I know there's a lot of the social media is very much high pressure now on children, and vaping, which is illegal in Brazil, but I see it here a lot in Ireland. And I know when we were youngsters, we used to be like old brats, and you'd be, trying to light butts that you found on the ground and stuff. But that was different, I mean, now there's a really big problem with popcorn lungs. I mean, young people actually dying from this smoking perfume. I mean, it's quite a different world that they are
Yes.
trying to navigate. So I think that the youth need our prayers, and all everyone is beautiful. We all start out with this, we all have this within us. It's just sometimes we need to guide them along without getting in their face, because to children, we are dinosaurs. Let's face it.
Yes.
You
Yes,
know, I,
yes,
I went down to the local college here yesterday. There was a
yeah,
talk for mature students, and there was lots of young people and their tutors and stuff. And I was saying that to them. I said, I'm so grateful for that there is an opportunity to be a mature student. And I know when I was in college, I used to look at mature students and think, oh my God, they're so old. And now
yes,
I'm in this position, and I'm grateful to have lived this long to be a dinosaur.
yes,
And to somehow be the real me. The veils have all dropped,
yes,
the layers have come down, they still have layers to go. And this is
yes,
the authentic self. As much as it
yes,
can be, occasionally I have to put the guard up because people think I've been in the cult for 22 years and I'm suddenly back to evangelicalize the world or something. But what other people think of me is none of my business. And I learned that in Brazil, which is very liberating. Um, and I just do, by my very presence, without opening my mouth, I know the entities are liberating people around me or sending them this vibration. Not that I'm a witch or
yes.
anything, but I just feel this heart connection with people. I don't
Mm.
judge, I just, and I was just telling you there, I was called for jury duty, but I'm kind of wondering how to wangle. None of the jurisdiction are listening to me now. But anyway, it's not my place to judge because it's the divine. But it's just incredible that we can talk like time stood still, that we are connecting on a sister soul level, like we were in Lustavina around that beautiful lunch table under
Oh,
the
that's right.
avocado tree.
That was so fun, and how you were describing trying to get people out of the current who needed to go to the toilet and they needed to open their eyes and move away. And I can remember making myself sit there one time in current, and I put my hand up because I thought if I didn't, I'd end up under the seat in front of me, and which would be very embarrassing. And I can remember you standing in front of me saying, "Glennis, open your eyes," and I'm thinking, "Hell, I can't. They're stuck together." And then I opened them, and it was
Yeah.
like looking into a volcano. They were all red, and my legs were all puffed up. So I went back and rested, and that was funny. And all your stories about, um, yeah, it was great. Just loved having a laugh with you. It was just so fun.
Yeah, it was the joy of sharing my life experience in a very light way. I mean,
Yes,
I
yes,
have this gift of my mother gave it to me, of course, or down through my ancestral lines of um not taking myself too seriously and also being lighter, being light and fun. And I had my wings in the cafe and my halo and my
that's
shiny
right.
stuff and my
And
wand,
the glasses,
heart
the
shaped glass,
the
bling, bling,
St.
bling, bling.
Patrick's Day glasses. Yes, the green ones. Yes, yes.
I'm
Oh, and
telling
all
you,
your aprons. Over
oh,
the years, I've been looking at all the aprons. But the sense of humor thing, to be able to laugh at yourself, it's a major form of survival when the going gets really tough.
yes,
And it's certainly, and it is joyful, and
it
and
opens the
I, you know,
heart.
the divine really has brought us here not to suffer, but to be happy and joyful. And with the
Yeah.
joyful vibration spreading, that's how the consciousness will be raised.
So God laughed. And Jesus laughed. I mean, I just did a meditation 2 days ago. I put it online, Live, Laugh, Love, about saints and holy people who had great senses of humor. And, they had the joy, and laughter is medicine, and it does open your heart. And that's the way I carried myself through Abidjania, because there was an awful lot of sick people and a lot of people on death's door, and who really had no hope. And they arrived there as the last roll of the dice. And there were, cracking jokes. I mean, I'm in the car and quite seriously praying. Okay, occasionally I cracked a joke, but I wouldn't go down with my red nose into the current or whatever, but I
Oh, no,
had a lot of
no.
that, but in the cafe, I had free reign because it was my territory. And
Yes.
I just jumping up and down, running up and down the streets and waving this shiny wand at people. And for me, it was really uplifting. And other people who were sick would actually release a little bit. So there was a bit of
Yes. Yes.
of of love shared, and vibration. The vibration really lifts when you become lighter, when you let go of your inhibitions. And that was my aprons. So I did apron shows during COVID with no,
I
well, I
saw
just
the apron shows. I would sit here and laugh at the aprons, and yes, it was
I mean,
wonderful.
totally improvised. I wasn't practicing for hours on end because I never did. I'm an improviser, and it was from the heart, because here I was singing roaring Danny Boy. I believe everyone can sing, but I should, I never, no holds barred, and just fun, and doing my twirls. And, a lot of people here in Ireland saw them as well. And I went, oh my God, we just waited for the next edition because I had like 50 aprons. And I have actually a few more. I must do more of them because it's necessary to have this joy in our lives. I mean, it's really
Yes.
important right now because everybody's taking themselves too seriously. Nobody gets out alive. And and it's a lovely way to express ourselves, the child within us, because a child has
Yes.
no inhibitions, and a child doesn't know the world as well as we know it. So it's bringing us back into this childlike quality of uh, laughing, and it's a release. It's like a healing. It's a balm for the soul and for the heart opening, and just chuckling away. It's like a good laugh or a good chuckle, not at the expense of others, just because it's so bizarre. And I'm just such a child at heart, and I just don't really, care what people think about me. I just think it's hilarious, roaring Danny Boy out, or I was singing John Denver, the song. Annie's song, and with my Ducati, my pretend guitar, and tuning it up
Yeah.
and stuff, to be just to be myself. And it may seem crazy to even, you know, teenagers are just saying this thing is off. She's off her nut and she's on something. I mean, this is completely sober. I mean, I
Yes.
gave up alcohol a long time ago. I mean, I don't need anything
It's
anymore to.
divine, divine mirth.
It's absolutely between
And
heaven
we,
and earth, and it was given to me as a gift, and I use it accordingly and as much as I possibly can. You know. And it's a great thing to finish on, because we are. Oh God, I could talk to you forever, Glennis, because we have been sewn at the hips for years, for lifetimes. But I will finish off on that note, because it is joyful, and it's been an absolute privilege, and I mean that from my heart, and a joy to talk to you and reconnect with you. And I know that for those of us who are watching, will remember you in Abidjania. And also, if it just helps to elevate one or two people, that's our job is done. And together, and to agree to talk to me about your experiences, because it's personal too. So thank you for this extraordinary love that we have shared and continue to share. right through eternally. I mean, there is no beginning and no end, the Alpha and the Omega. We really are. Uh, we're together forever, which is fantastic, really. So
I'd
thank you.
like to thank all the other people who have done podcasts because they help my heart to really flower, and I could just feel the love when they were talking.
Yeah.
And it's just been just a wonderful gift. All the other people. Mm,
Yeah, and a remembrance, but also a reminder of we still have it. It's not just
yes,
disappeared and it wasn't a waste of time or anything. Definitely not. That it was actually the beginning, bright new beginning of something huge, bigger than us. And it continues to grow as we, 2025 onwards, like we are actually coming into a whole new world of love
we
light. I
are.
mean, it's an exciting
We
time to
are.
be on the planet.
Yes, it
So
is.
it's just an ongoing energetic field. It's not something that has ever, died. It will never die. It'll stay alive forever. So this is the beauty of us reminding everybody and ourselves
Yes,
too, and
yes.
just being able to have a bit of a chuckle too, I mean, that's important. So thank you, Glenys, all the way from Christchurch, where you're evening and I'm morning here in Ireland, and it's a rainy day, but the rain makes the flowers grow, so I never complain about weather. It's just weather.
Yes,
So
yes.
thank you from my heart to yours. And we'll
Thank
see each
you.
other. I'll get down there one of these days, I betcha.
Oh,
I,
oh, that would be just so good. That would be
oh my
so good.
God. I have been in New Zealand before, but that was when I was young and gullible. And I could see it with new eyes. I mean, I did all the Franz Joseph Glacier and I did the Rotorua, the smelly. It's an amazing country. It's the world in one country. You have everything there. It's a beautiful place. It's God's country, you know. So thank you, Glenys, from my heart to
Thank you.
yours.
It's just been wonderful. Just wonderful. God bless
Yeah.
everybody.
Yes, absolutely. All our brothers and sisters who are tuning in and who are, people will actually, in their time, people have said to me, um, they will, when they're ready. Some people are not ready to bare their souls or they're busy, and then we'll have more of these going forward. And actually, it's been a lot of ladies, which is great. A couple of guys have been stepping forward as well. And there are a few guys who are going to do it in the future. So we'll find that balance. I mean, sons and daughters of the Casa, we're all the same. So thank you, Glennis.